So first off is Steve Smith, and let me get him so that he's available to speak to us.
I'm here. Can you hear me, Ken?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ken. I wanted to welcome everyone to this session of the Project and Community Owners Meeting, and like to thank everyone for joining us and for participating in the VLab and using it for promoting the various projects and communities that you're involved with. We provide this meeting for you in order to provide you the latest information, latest training with regard to VLab, because you're the most important people. You're the ones who are the movers and shakers who are actually trying to use it to better whatever your activity you're involved with or you're promoting, to facilitate your collaborations, to facilitate and put some energy into your software development if that's what you're doing. So this meeting is really yours. So we're going to go through our agenda, but please, at any point during any of the sessions you have questions, please use the raise your hand or chat feature in the GoToMeeting so that we can field your questions. It's okay if we go off on tangents. That's part of what this is for. We've got a really packed agenda today. We're going to hear about the imminent rollout of single sign-on, which has been long in the waiting. So we're very happy that that's almost on the doorstep, and what's that going to mean for you. Later, we have a community project spotlight. Mike Moxig from the Warning Decision Training Division of National Weather Service, which is in the Office of the Chief Learning Officer, is going to give us some information about what they've been doing. And the OCLO, as they're called, have really been on the cutting edge of doing VLab development and stretching our capabilities, really testing out some of the functionalities that we, the VLab team, haven't even tested yet. So they're doing great stuff, and hopefully you will be impressed by that and maybe motivated to try some things along those lines yourself. I want to remind everyone that the VLab improvement team is your resource to provide suggestions as for regards to modification changes to VLab. You can access that on the main VLab page through the Help Us Improve link. You may have noticed on our landing page we've now got some icons which better illustrate some of the basic functions, getting troubleshooting help, finding an expert. We've got a VLab news section, and the Help Us Improve is the portal into the VLab improvement team. So if you have any suggestions, you can go to that link and provide those, and they'll be vetted and adjudicated by the VLab improvement team, which is an independent group which acts as a prioritization function for us so that we make sure we're putting the top priorities as far as new functionality development and troubleshooting to the top. So with that, I will hand it back over to Ken and look forward to lots of questions from everyone. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks, Steve. So next up is myself talking about building the VLab, what's new. Steve touched on some of those things, and you'll actually see, hopefully, as part of this meeting today, a demonstration of single sign-on, what we're working on there, and as Steve indicated, it's about to go live. And we'll also touch on blogs, email posts, and then the storing organizations in VLCS. So other things in terms of what we've been focused on in terms of building the VLab, probably there are a couple things coming up. There was a VLab presentation last month in August by Jason Burks covering the AWIPS reference material, and that has that's tightly tied to VLab, and that the reference material is being developed by those, and by Mike Moxig and the Warning Decision Training Division and OCLO, and we're the whole system is tied to VLab, and so it's critical just in general that VLab performs well. And so one of our senior members of our team, Jason Burks, and myself have been focused over the last week and a half on ensuring that the performance is going to continue to meet the demands and increased demands of our user base, with the anticipated increases coming too because of these new capabilities. So we've been spending a fair amount of time in doing performance testing through JMeter, and then making tweaks to connection pooling and other settings within Liferay to ensure a good experience for those coming to the site. So we understand that that's the most important thing, other than being up, is performance. So that's where a lot of energy is going into right now. So why don't we switch into some of the demos then? So the first thing I'm going to demonstrate is what we've been doing with single sign-on. And so let's go ahead. I'll move this browser over here. And so this has not been rolled out into production yet. It is, however, rolled out into dev. We have a shared development environment. And so the change is that previously you always used a screen name and password. That was your NOAA username and password. And what we're switching to, well, it's an addition. So you can still use your LDAP credentials, but if you choose to, and which I think most people will, you can use your Google account. And it's your NOAA Google account. It's not going to work with a domain other than @noaa.gov. But if you have a NOAA Google account and you're not on the AWIPS network, and I'll explain why that is, you can use this capability. And so what it allows you to do is this button appears here, and we tried to make this on the forefront so that you would see it and it's intuitive. So if there's feedback, let us know. But this button will appear. It says, so basically you click on this button, it's going to then redirect you, and it went to my other screen. I haven't never done it in this browser, so I'm doing it for the first time to show you what happens the very first time. So you come into here, you have to type in your password. And you might say at this point, well, that doesn't really improve anything. Well, for most people, you're already going to be logged in to your Google account, so you wouldn't have to do this. And because I've got the two-step authentication, I got to type that in. So this actually makes it more secure because of this. So then once you're logged in, it will redirect you and you're logged into the site. So at that point, you're logged into Google. So if I were to come over here and bring up Google, you can see that I logged in without typing in any credentials. So we understand that when people were to use this, there's a potential that when they log out of here, of the VLab, we wanted to make sure that they wouldn't necessarily have problems. So a dialog is supposed to come up, and we've been having some performance issues on the dev side today. Okay, there you go. So this dialog comes up, and it's going to give you the option to either log out of Google. So if you logged into VLab and you didn't have a Gmail session or a calendar session within Google set up, you wouldn't want to log out of VLab and leave that session running. So that's why we have this dialog come up. So this is going to, if you want to remain logged into Google, like you want to keep using your Google websites, then you would click on this link here. It shows that you're signed in, so if you want to log back in, you just have to click on into VLab. You just click on that, and it will take you right into the site. So that's the way that works. If you were to sign out, then let's do that. Figure out why. So I'm going to log out of Google this time. And so now you notice that it says sign in here. So if you click on this, it's going to, because I've already typed in my account, it's using a cookie there. So you basically select the account. You have to log back in. You don't need the two-step verification because I've already enabled it for that machine. And so that's that. If, for example, you're already logged into here, I come in and I log out of VLab, but not Google, then in that situation, if you try to go to a deep link, and what I mean by that is try to go to a, here I'll show you. So we're on a public site, but if I go to one of the, type, and when it's working, it'll redirect you. So since we rolled this out, we weren't experiencing this on our local instances, but we are in IDP. So there's something about the performance of the IDP platform. So we're going to have to dig into this deeper. So there's still, unfortunately, we're running into an issue there. But the button should appear, and then once that button appears, then it automatically will redirect you in because you're signed in. If there's ever a problem, you can still log in using your normal credentials. And so, and then that'll log you into the site. I mentioned earlier, one of the things about this solution is that it doesn't work from the single sign-on, doesn't work from the AWIPS network. And the reason for that is that from the AWIPS network, there's no connectivity from the browsers within the AWIPS network to Google. And so as a result of that, you can't authenticate from the browser. And so anyway, so you have to actually log in using your LDAP credentials from the AWIPS network. That's also true for the external partners. They're going to still have to use their credentials because they don't have no Gmail accounts. So that is single sign-on. Are there any questions concerning single sign-on? If you raise your hand, then we can address those before I move on to the next. Let's see if there are any questions. Okay, it doesn't look like it. So I'll move on to the next demonstration. And so this is, I'm going to demonstrate the production site for this. And this has to do with blog posts. So I'm going to go into, we have a Virtual Lab support team community. And I've got a blog there that I occasionally write things up within, and so for the team. And so the idea here is that previously, when people wrote a blog, the blog appeared, an email was generated, but it didn't. So it notified people that were subscribed. So you can see I'm subscribed to this blog. It would notify people, but it didn't contain the contents of the blog itself. And so that's changed now. So if I come into here and edit this entry, let's just add one. Okay, and then go ahead and publish it. Then anyone that is subscribed to that blog will get the notification. And so if we go, actually I have that other window open. So you can see now that the contents of the blog are included within the email. And so it's pretty intuitive. I'm not sure why it wasn't written that way initially, but we've modified it to support that. So there was one other thing I was going to demonstrate. I didn't get to it. I apologize. I will get to it next month. So I think Mike Giebler is ready to give a demonstration of the last thing. And so I'll switch and make him the presenter. Yeah.
Jim Seving has a question.
Okay. Let me see. 1 second. Get him unmuted. Jim, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Hey, I tried to add a picture to a blog that I had on one of my pages, and it ended up displaying in the upper left-hand corner of the page instead of inside the blog post itself. Has anybody else had this problem, and is this just a known bug, or am I not doing something correct?
I was not aware of that bug. Let me, if we've got time, we'll do a quick test afterwards to see.
Okay,
and if not, we'll definitely write that down and test that to see. So if you're, I wouldn't expect that behavior. So, because I know I've included images and things before. Yeah, that's strange. So, yeah,
It was just
we'll
a
definitely
copy-paste image. It wasn't an image that was located on the server. I was pointing to another picture that that I had grabbed off of another platform. So.
Okay. Okay. If you have a URL that you can send us to, if it's still displaying that way, that would help, so we can troubleshoot it. So.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for your help. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Sure. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So let me switch back over. So Mike G, you should be the presenter now. And let me, so we're not hearing you, Mike, if you're talking.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Can? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks.
Great. Okay. All right. So what I'm demonstrating is we had an issue come in through our Redmine about the community members directory portlet. And the issue that was going on is, I'll show you here in production what we have in production, is that there's over on the right for this community, all the members of this community, there's this organizations column that pretty much, except for one instance here, there's no information in here for that. So the request came in that, well, can we configure this so that on a community basis, can we configure it so that we don't show that if there's no data to show in there? And also, as a second step, can we make it so users can populate the organization's column? And the way this works out is that there's two different things that we decided to do. The organizations is actually part of LifeRay. They have a hierarchical organization structure similar to communities where they can have child communities and stuff like that. So that we can't really have the users populate. So what we did is we, if you recall a while back, I'm going to go over here to development. We demonstrated the new profile summary portlet. And we made an enhancement to that, and that's what the summary is here, where we can go in, a user can edit their profile and put in their job title, a little bit of blurb of about me. And we just recently added this work organization field to it as well. They can also go in here and add categories and tags to help people find them. So what we've done is in the profile summary portlet, we added this additional field where you can add your work organization. And then in the back in the community directory portlet, we actually added that column to it. Let me get to it here. And I'll show that to you. All right, so we left the organizations column that we saw in production, and we also added the new field that we added to the profile, the work organization. So that will show up, and that's where people, the one that users can populate on their own. And also for site owners and site administrators, they will see this additional tab up here called Preferences. And once we click on that, the site owner or site administrator can decide which columns they want to display. So in this case, we probably want to go ahead and display the work organization, but maybe we don't want that life rate organization column. So we uncheck that, click the Save Preferences. And then if we go back to the users, that column no longer displays. So kind of given a little more flexibility for this portlet so that the site administrators can decide which columns to display, and also giving users the ability to populate this work organization column as well. And ideally, it would have been nice to, I couldn't figure out how to do this. This preferences should probably come off the configuration, but this works pretty well here. It's convenient to find, and it's only visible to site administrators and site owners. So that's all I have for that
Okay.
portlet.
Thank you, Mike. Are
Sure.
there any questions concerning that?
Daniel Melendez has one.
Okay, let me get. Okay, Daniel, you should be, unmuted. Are you there, Daniel?
He just asked about what about showing communities people belong to?
That's a.
What was that question?
They want to know if there's a way to show what communities a person belongs to. I don't think, I don't, off the top of my head, I don't think that there is a portlet that shows that from that perspective. So in other words, there's something in the administrative console that shows us what communities each member is a member of, but I don't think, unless Mike, if you can recall, I don't remember seeing anything like that.
No, I don't. The only thing I can think of is if you go to your My Account, but that's, you can only see your own account. You can't see somebody else's. Right. It'll list the communities you belong to there.
Yeah, if that's something that you think, Daniel, would be useful, you're more than welcome to. Let me show you. You can make a request through the VLab improvement team, and then they can prioritize that. So that would be a good opportunity to use that form. So, okay, any other questions from anyone? All right, then we're going to go ahead and switch over to our main event for today, and that is, so Mike Mogzig is going to provide our community spotlight for the WDTD AWIPS resource. So let me give you Mike to make you the presenter. And you see your screen now. I'm not hearing you quite yet.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Perfect.
Okay. All right, thanks, Ken. Again, this is Mike Mogzig from the Warning Decision Training Division. I've been kind of the leader in OCLO in getting our community set up. Once we found out that the VLab was going to be made available to AWIPS, we jumped in, and we've been trying to do that on NOAA 1 and through other mechanisms to try and bridge this huge gap that happens after people take the training and they go to use it after a few weeks or months, and people tend to forget a lot of what they go over in training. So we're really trying to design a lot more references that are on-the-job references, quick look-up information, so that people can refer back to key concepts that have already been trained on. I do want to make a clear distinction that in our training circles we have a very sharp distinction between what we're envisioning for OCLO and hosting references in the VLab and training, which is all managed through our Commerce Learning Center through a different system. So our intent is not to dump all our training on the VLab and have people take this in AWIPS and online. We have our training inside our CLC, our Commerce Learning Center, and then we're designing references that are extensions of the training into the VLab. So that's kind of what I'm going to show you today, is this references idea. So we formed an OCLO community. I set up that page. We wanted to make a one-stop shop for all OCLO AWIPS references so that sites could go to one page and be able to find everything, at least a launching point for now, until there's more sophisticated tools coming down the road, which I'll talk to a little bit later. So what I've been able to do so far is just do simple upload of content and develop web content in the VLab. Basic site administration. We decided early on to go with a public hosting of all our materials. So you'll see this is our VLab homepage for the OCLO. It's web/OCLO/home. So everything we're designing is for public access, so it doesn't require any login on AWIPS or on the internet. So we want to remove as many barriers as possible so that forecasters can get direct access to this information, both within AWIPS and on the internet. So I'm going to show you the public homepage that we have here. We have some links to our main division pages, where one of the challenges we have is identifying what's available through the internet and what's available through AWIPS. And so you'll see we'll put a lot of references in here of this is web content only, but we've got a mix of websites that are accessible through the internet, and then if you're on AWIPS and try and access those, they won't go anywhere. But that's something over time we're going to try and maybe have a kind of consistent look and feel to tagging things so that you can tell, can I reach this if I'm on AWIPS, or is this something that's only on the internet and for internet access? But we made our public web page so that you don't have to sign on or log in. What we've been doing since January, when this capability was first rolled out for AWIPS, is we've been creating AWIPS build training, and we'll have these short modules which will be about 10 minutes in length that'll cover the high points of a lot of the build contents. And then for some of the more advanced topics, we will have individual training modules in the CLC that can be 15 minutes, and so people take this training, and then we have reference pages that we've designed in the VLab. So we've made this forecaster references menu. Right now the menuing system's kind of constrained to be all the pages you've defined, and that's one of the areas that we do want to grow into, is having sub-menus and better menuing system. But you can see we've already populated this with a lot of existing training references. I can go to our build changes link every time we have a build release. just released some 16.2.1 training last month, and I've got 16.2.2 training that's almost ready to be released. Basically, anytime we have a release, we'll have let me go back to our 16.2.1 release here, kind of documented all of the materials that were in our informational overview. If somebody had taken the training, or if they hadn't taken the training, they discovered this and they want to be able to go to it. If they're online, they can just click this link here. We've made all our links to be pop-up windows in separate, in separate windows, so we don't kind of get lost in that navigation through the VLab, because I know that's one of the big issues. So that's kind of an example of embedding some of our web content link that's through our CLC in the make it accessible from the VLab if you're on AWIPS. We've also tried putting in our speaker notes for our training. This is where we're starting to get to some of that. If you remember a particular slide and a concept that you want to drill back down into, you can go back to our training. We make a simple PDF of each speaker notes with the slide on it, so you can go back to that content if you want to drill down to a particular maybe point in depth. But really where our kind of niche is going here is that we're making these reference pages for a lot of the more significant capabilities, like let's say the annual recurrence interval data. This is a new data set that gives you climatological reference of how frequent that precip has happened in that location. So here's an example of our standard kind of template for our reference page. This is the ARIs and AWIPS page. We'll have the training job sheets up here at the top. For this module, we had an informational overview for this build, which just touched on just the highlights of what's in the build. We had 2 training modules on introducing ARIs and as well as using ARIs and AWIPS that were released in the CLC with speaker notes. But we also made job sheets. So this is where we're going to touch on the high-level declarative knowledge in our training through this distance learning technique, but then when we want people to do the procedural stuff and that kind of information, we put those in the job sheets. And so we've made 2 different types of job sheets. We have a PDF version of the job sheet, which will have the instruction followed by the image. There's different ways of doing job sheets, and we found from our users that there's times when you like both. But this is just simple job sheet for how to load it and what that looks like, so you can kind of look along on your live AWIPS. You could load this up and go through the steps of loading ARIs. We have an HTML version of that page as well. If you don't want this job sheet blasted out into 20 pages with these giant images, and you just want to see there's only 3 or 4 steps, then we've made the individual steps just kind of separate with image pop-ups. So we're still trying to get user feedback. If there's a particular preference, we wouldn't mind just going one way, but to start out with, because we found it beneficial to do both, that's where we're starting out. And so far, those that have replied back to that question have said they sometimes like the PDF, they sometimes like the HTML, but overall, just a lot of very positive feedback in our 16.2.1, our 16.1.1 training, our 16.2.1 training, and our 16.2.2 draft that I'm just getting more feedback from. I just keep getting a consistent message from all our reviewers, and that they're saying they really appreciate these short, timely, pointed training efforts with the job sheets available. I know that when we go around to the field and ask, are you using the VLab much? A lot of sites are saying to the people that are here going out and saying, no, we're not using it, but we have some problems with it, accessibility. Yet when I've had people use the job sheets through the VLab, it's been a kind of resounding success in that sense. And sometimes people don't even know they're using the VLab when they're just accessing job sheets. So I think we're getting a lot of very positive experience with this new design approach for AWIPS of doing informational overviews with job sheets in the VLab. And every time this will be my 3rd release in this paradigm, and I keep getting very positive feedback from that. Any questions before? I'll just go ahead and pause here for a second, see if there's anyone who has a question at this point. Okay, so a little bit more on the format of what we're doing. We have these reference pages. This will be the ARIs and AWIPs page, which has the job sheets up at the top, and you can click on the PDF or the HTML. There's access points for the speaker notes PDFs, as well as if you're on the internet, you can get directly to the training in the CLC. You can log in and access it there. But we're designing these reference lookup for what's a quick overview of this capability. What are the refresher commands that are the key commands in order to use that tool, and then some of the tips for usage and limitations. And on this one, we actually made an ARI FFmpeg configurations page that there has been quite a bit of confusion in the field on how to set some things up. So we started putting together a little bit more support for, I've been answering a lot of questions on focal point issues for AWIPS 2 and FFmpeg, so I've consolidated those, put those in the VLab, and have been pointing people to this resource. So if they have problems setting up ARIs and FFmpeg, they can refer back to that, and we've linked it on our main page. I can show you some of our other forecaster references here. I had the AWIPS build changes up at the top that kind of summarizes all our training that we've been kind of releasing. We've had some of our AWIPS 2 migration training from the old days, the good old N-sharp and the variance training module have been made available on this page. We've had some of our more interesting pages on the 16.1.1 training, this all-layer grid. This was a new idea that we expanded upon, not only just having some user training on here's a new capability, here are the job sheets in the VLab, go use this capability in this way. There is this new capability in 16.1.1. We discovered that you can turn any volume-based grid analysis bundle into an all tilts like all layer grid. So this is really helpful for things like isentropic analysis, where you're then kind of constrained to choose your isentropic layers, and your ability to slice and dice the data is pretty limited. But I made some instructions where I have an all tilts ascent XML that's included in the VLab, that if you're on an LX workstation, right-click, save, load this, you could be running an all tilts all layer isentropic bundle. And the people who've tried it out really like this bundle. I made a job sheet for how do you take any existing bundle in AWIPS and quickly be able to convert it to all layer type capability, and got a lot of positive feedback from stuff like that. So this is where we're starting to bridge into, it sounds like focal point, but this has really been used by a lot of forecasters, so it's kind of, it's pushing the envelope for what we can do with forecasters and being able to download procedures and bundles, be able to look at them, try them out, have some simple instructions for if you want to do this yourself, how do you do this, and kind of leverage a lot of these new capabilities under the hood in AWIPS 2 that we're just kind of discovering here. So that's been one of the more interesting things that we've started putting in some job sheets that are how to build your own bundles in AWIPS 2 using the localization perspective to do some more advanced analysis techniques. So that's a kind of a tour of a couple of those main pages. We are in the midst of converting we converted our AWIPS 1 AWIPS Fundamentals case. It's been for our Distance Learning Operations course, or DLOC, and it's been converted to RAC, and now we have a standalone AWIPS Fundamentals course that's a prerequisite for RAC, and this is where the interns go to take our main AWIPS training here. We have a page set up for that from last year, which was our 14.3.1 baseline, where we had our giant PDF that has all our instructions for AWIPS basics on CAVE, FFmpeg, WarnGen, all our standard kind of introductory level training that is augmented with West 2 bridge exercises and case applications. But we housed at least our PDF in the VLab last year. This year we're converting that over into more of an inherent VLab structure, so that we're going to be able to access a lot of the basic training and reference material that we have for our AWIPS Fundamentals course in the VLab, and then we're going to start kind of opening this up to larger pools of forecasters, not just the interns. So we're really migrating a much larger trajectory of AWIPS training towards smaller, focused modules with references in the VLab for procedural type knowledge, declarative knowledge. We still manage through our Commerce Learning Center, but we're really leveraging the VLab to try and bring a lot of these references and quick lookups to forecasters, so when they forget the training, they need to go back to concepts on shift, they can just easily get over to it on the LXs. But being able to find it is another story. We have this one-stop shop and one page for everything, but still, I would be surprised if we're really having lots of people use this capability yet. We're anticipating with 16.4.1 and the AWIPS interactive reference that's going to be released, that in December, when we're going to be able to have a right-click help on Cave that's going to scan your contents and be able to give you any references that have been registered in the VLab, that we're going to be registering all our main important content where we've designed pages that are quick lookup pages that will kind of register it with the AWIPS interactive reference, and then forecasters will just be able to access this on shift through the LXs with a right-click in Cave, and then we'll probably start to see a lot more traction in more widespread use. But until then, we're still leveraging the VLab with our build training. Every build we've been putting new capabilities in there, and everyone we keep having test out and review our training gives us very strong positive feedback for the direction we're going with this and our use of the VLab.
All right, thank you, Mike. That's very great stuff. This is gonna, having all this content is crucial for the success, and especially with the AWIPS interactive reference tool rolling out, as you indicated, come December to the forecasters. So this is great stuff. Are there any questions from anyone before we move on to the roundtable?
Steve Smith wants to talk.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go
Can
ahead,
you hear me?
Steve.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just a comment. I wanted to thank Mike for this tremendous effort and really diving in, with both feet and pushing the envelope. It's really beneficial for us, and I just appreciate his enthusiasm and taking some risks here, because I think it does require a commitment to get where they've gotten, and so I really want to thank Mike for that. One thing I believe we should do, Ken, is put a special Google Analytics check for this particular page so we can get some metrics on how much it's accessed, if we can already do that, so that we can provide that both for us and to Mike, because this one is right in the VLab Liferay, accessible on the internet. I know the AWIPS, through the AWIPS WAN we can't do that, but at least for this page we can start getting some metrics to see how much it's accessed. Question for Mike, did you want to mention about the VLab training that I believe you're going to be embarking on as well?
Yeah, so I just kind of gave a tour of the existing references that we have out on our OCLO website, and this is still early phases. We'll have other divisions that will be participating and putting in content, but we have been given the resources to hire a VLab trainer, and we put together a training development plan so we could take a lot of the lessons learned that we have and then work with the VLab team here to be able to provide SUs and VLab content developers some fundamental training on how do you use the VLab, and then to be able to kind of partner with the VLab to shore up the references so that the SUs and folks in the field that want to use the VLab have all the training and the tools they need to be able to kind of run with the VLab. I think we're still in the midst of the early hiring of the position, so we're looking at the general time frame of our training development is going to be a spin-up period here in this first month or two, and then we're going to start taking the basic information that we've been able to glean from all this and put together some fundamental training on how do you develop web content, what's the difference between page and content, and just some of the basic tripping points that we kind of clearly understand that these are the things that trip people up, and have some basic training and references being targeted towards the later end of this year, where that AWIPS interactive reference comes out in December. Then we'd really like to be able to arm the SUs with the capability to be able to upload their own training in the VLab, and then have their training references in the VLab, and then be able to register that with the AWIPS interactive reference. So if they want to host some material that they want to see within the circle or share amongst the the weather service, that they can do that. And so we're probably looking at in the next few months, once we get our spin-up period done, having some beginning training on the fundamentals, and then how do you leverage this AWIPS interactive reference capability. In addition, GoZAR is going to be hopefully launched in November, and if there's any particular issues on the user side for GoZAR, if they do go to any forums or any more advanced things that aren't intuitive with the course rollout, then our new VLab person will be participating in that. And then the bigger trajectory for the 2-year training development plan is, first year, be able to have fundamental training on all the different components of the VLab, how to use these effectively, and then work with the SUs in the second year to be able to implement these best practices, and kind of have close the circle with not only provide the training, but ensure that the field kind of pushes the envelope and has everything they need, and they're successful in implementing it at their local office. So we'll be partnering a lot with the VLab admin team, but we'll kind of be a catalyst to get some training and some improved references in the VLab, and then be working with everybody over the next year to 2 years to ensure that everybody who wants to use the VLab can implement it to their fullest capabilities.
Great, thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. And I have one last question. You guys have been using, I believe, what's called the staging environment in LifeRay to develop some of this stuff, and I was curious to get your opinion on how well that's working or not working.
Yeah, we first started with this public versus private, and we decided to go, okay, let's develop everything public. When you're developing on a live website that's being used, you're really exposing the users to a lot of dirty development. So eventually we bit the bullet, and we turned on the staging content. So now we have 3 areas. There's the public side, there's the private side, and then there's this staging side. So when we have things that are in public, we can develop in staging, we can save it there, we can preview it without the users on the outside seeing it. Then when we're done, we hit publish, and then it goes all at once, so we're not exposing the field to our developing on the pages. So early on, I think we had some problems getting some things converted over. Ken provided a fix for our first stab at that. Since then, it was working fairly consistently until recently. There was an ability when we try and publish, it's not identifying our links for our group right, so we have to kind of go in and manually get the URLs and paste them in the web content editor. So we can get by with this right now, and it looks like it's going to be one of those things Ken will be able to address in the shorter term. So I'd say once he gets this last thing, this last bug that came out of the July update in the VLab addressed, then it looks like it's going to work consistently. And once users have a little bit of introduction to what is staging, how do you access it, how do you look at something in staging versus public, and just keep track of things, it can be real easy to kind of trip yourself up in this. And I think with a little bit of training and references, I think everyone should be able to use staging once this last thing gets fixed.
Great. Thanks so much, Mike. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Mike and Steve. Thanks again, Mike, for that great presentation. So we're going to switch on over to our roundtable. Let me go ahead and take back the presentation. So Okay, so hopefully you guys are seeing the agenda again. So with that, we're at the roundtable, and so this is the opportunity to discuss any questions, any open issues. Basically, everything's on the table at this point, so it's your guys' opportunity to, you have Steve Smith, the director, myself, technical lead for the VLab, as well as several other core members of the VLab on this call. So are there any questions or comments from anyone, any of the project or community owners? If you it's very quiet out there.
I'll throw in just a little 2 more cents. One of the areas that I think it's good to have a basic setup for the menuing and the other kind of look and feel to the communities, but I think they've been kind of bloated and there's so much stuff having on there. We tried to pare down everything on our website, and Tao, our West Two Bridge programmer, was informing us, oh, we could totally redo that front page and have it not just a collection of portlets that are kind of busy looking, but we could redo the look and feel of that front page. So that's something that over time I think we're going to want to start exploring. It's great to have this basic framework to start, but the menuing system and look and feel, we might be able to expand that out a little bit and make it look a little bit more like a web page and make it a little more a little easier on the eyes. I think a lot of feedback we've got early on is that there's just so much in there. It looks like a jungle. It's kind of busy, and so trying to refine these interfaces is really going to be important when people use this on a regular basis. And we're going to start looking into that. I don't think we'll have much in the short term in the next few months, but hopefully over the next year we're going to start looking at expanding that basic template out and seeing what we can do on making the basic communities look and feel a little bit different.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I actually called and spoke with Tao right on that subject matter this past Friday. So for those that don't know, VLCS, it supports themes, and so we've got the VLab theme out there. There's also a default theme available, and that's an area that we're starting to focus some energy on. We want to pull in some of the people that have expertise in these areas. We're looking at actually hiring some more junior, but people with design, a good eye for design, and pulling it in because we know, we've put together the VLab. We've got the mortar and the foundation and the infrastructure in place, but we didn't spend as much time, or we just didn't have the time, to be honest, to work on the details when it comes to the look and feel of the site. We did spend some time on it, but our team makeup is such that we don't have an expert in design. So we're going to be forming a team, and we're looking to enlist your guys' help and bring in Tao and some others as Kongming out at NSSL, and as well as potentially some new hires, and to address this issue because we know there's a huge amount of room for improvement. Some of the templates, the community templates, that's something that every community starts with the same template. This hadn't been revised in years, and so just 2 weeks ago we went in and modified those to clean some things up because it was very clear that some of the portlets that were on there by default didn't make sense to be there. They weren't really that effective, such as the calendar portlet and the announcements. So those were removed. So if there are other ideas in terms of, those are really easy things to do. The look and feel is going to be a bit more challenging, but it's definitely worthwhile. So, and we can, the way that we're thinking about this at this point is that we could potentially offer a couple different flavors. So, because what we found in the usability testing when we first did this about 4 years ago was that people fell into two different categories: those that like a lot going on and those that like the really clean look. I think that if you look at the major websites today, things have migrated away from the portal, quote-unquote, look and feel, and more towards that clean look. And so we should be moving in that direction as well. And I think that the underlying platform, we're using something called Liferay. They've got a new release out, 7.0. They tend to be migrated in this direction as well. 7.0 isn't available yet, and it's just available as a like a beta release. But once it comes a little bit further along, that'll assist too in making things even cleaner. So that's a good point, Mike. So any other comments, questions from anyone else on the team?
I do have one more point to make, and that's over,
sure.
Again, for this December rollout, when we have our initial training for the whole weather service and how do you use all the SUs, how do you use the VLab, I think one of the things we're going to need to start getting our arms around is how do we want the WFOs and RFCs and all the different groups to be working in different communities. I know there's a Central Region SU page, and the SUs were just here and we were training them. I went downstairs and chatted a bit with them on shared some information on what I know about the VLab. I think they got in touch with John Ice and they turned some things on, and then that night they went in and I think somebody had adjusted the main page, and so it got taken off, and then there's just all this kind of, I'm not totally clear in my head of what's the best way going forward. Once we get this AWITS interactive reference and everyone's going to want to be able to do something, do we want to have every WFO have their own community that they can play around in a sandbox to really practice in, and then have these other communities be separate from that or joined? I've read and seen that there's things as sub-communities, but I haven't sat down with Tao to try and figure out what's out there and available. So I think over the next 3 months, I think we're going to really need to kind of take a comprehensive look at the approach we're using and ask, does everyone need their own sandbox to be able to do basic things like uploading references for sharing throughout the weather service and doing local stuff? And then how does that relate to other communities that are going on? And then obviously we'll want to have the training to complement that. So I don't know any of the answers to that, but I thought I'd just throw that out there because I know it's right around the corner for us.
Yeah, no, that's something that we've talked about and worked through for quite some time, because there is one of the things that really isn't used widely. We did have the discussion earlier about organizations and people setting their own organization. There also is the ability to have organizations with a hierarchical structure and then communities tied to those organizations. It's been on our list for a while to try to take advantage of LDAP if some of the attributes were populated so that you could automatically assign people to organizational structures and then they'd be members of the communities. So that's one thing that your talk or what you've mentioned brings to mind. The other is that what we're trying to do here is that you want people to be able to, the whole point or one of the main goals of VLab was for collaboration and sharing and transparency. And so one thing you struggle with is if everyone's working within their own little community, then there's not necessarily a lot of sharing that's taking place unless it's an open community. And so, but then on the other hand, as you mentioned, if you have everyone working within the same community, you have to be smart about how you set up the permissions in teams so that people don't inadvertently stomp on one another and cause problems. So I agree 100% that this is an area that we need to focus on and work with you guys and others that have this expertise. And with this new person coming on board, I think they'll be a good asset to help with that. So that would be good.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to chime in as well on this, on Mike's point. I mean, it certainly is valid, and I suspect the best path we can take here is to use the Sioux community as kind of a test case and prove it out, and and then that can be a model, role model for the general VLab or other like efforts. And so, along with you, Mike, and the folks in the OCLO as well as the VLab team, we can draw Dave Myrick in on this, so that basically come up with a pilot, I would say, and try to implement it and take it from there, because it is complex, and I don't think anybody can see it through to the end by designing it out on paper and saying, oh, that's the solution that'll work. You really have to try some things and be willing to turn back if it doesn't work out and try something else. So, but yeah, it's absolutely, you've hit it perfectly, and Ken touched on as well. We want, the sharing part is sort of fundamental. That's what at least Weather Service was criticized about, is that we were not only not sharing information, but we had a lot of redundant efforts, and so you can't sort of just go and have 1,000 little communities and hope to meet that. But finding the right balance, on the other hand, is highly challenging. So I suspect I will see Dave. I just saw him this morning. I think he's going to NWA next week, but I'll talk to him about this, and maybe he can serve as sort of the lightning rod to get this going.
Okay, thanks, Steve. One other thing, unrelated to this, but something that I think would be worthwhile, and this was at the urging of, or prodding of Mike Mogsig, and that is one thing that we haven't had thus far is we've been using forums, obviously, within VLab, and they're quite a success. But one thing that's come up is that the usage of VLab has increased, which is great. That's what we want. But it also, it used to be that we could, I could get on from the West Coast at 10 or 11 at night or midnight and roll things out and bring VLab down. But now we've got people on 24/7, and we need ways in which to communicate outages. We do have fixed schedules in terms of twice a month now. There are IDP, the NCO does patching of the systems, and so we fail over. There are 2 sets of servers that are used for VLab for the hosting of VLab, and so we do fail over the service so that so the patching can take place without affecting VLab. But it's about a 15-minute to 20-minute typically window. Twice a month. It happens on Tuesday evenings it typically happens after 9 Eastern, and so that continues to take place. But when we do have fixes or patches and updates, we've traditionally, in very late hours, rolled those out, which with short outages. But my point is that the forums, that's not a good mechanism necessarily to disseminate information such as this, because it is possible that there might be an outage too, and if our dissemination mechanism is tied to VLab, then we're not going to be able to disseminate. So I did make a request for a listserv account, and then I'm going to tie that to a forum within VLab, and so this will provide instructions for people. So anyone that would consider themselves to be a power user of VLab, that they want to actually know when things like this are going on, will be able to subscribe to that listserv account, or if you just want to get a sense for what's been going on, you'll be able to go to this new forum that we'll be creating and peruse that information. But this will be a way for us to let people know when we're planning on rolling things out and impacting the system. We do, part of our process is that before we ever bring VLCS down, we do, there's a shutdown notice, and so depending upon how many people are on, we always put that in place so that people are given a heads up that if they're in the middle of editing a wiki or web content or something else, they don't lose work before we actually shut down the service. But anyway, I wanted to let people know about that. So is there anything else? Okay, so we'll, the next meeting, Greg will be back in the driver's seat, and that will be October 26th. And so with that, everyone have a great day, and we'll talk with you all next month. Thank you.